Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Wirraway versus Heclapar play-by-mail campaign. It is the 14th of January, 1942. I-3 operating off the Southern California coast. Like making sure that ship is dead. Transport landing preparation for our landings at Port Moresby. Base cleanup or cleaning up bases in Java, technically. Landing to take Ternate. Minesweepers busy at Singapore. The port is almost fully operational again at Singapore. Much. Small AKL is doing off Borneo. He's finally detected the Port Moresby invasion task force. This is air support for an attack south of Changsha. See how that goes. Thought I had set the Bettys to rest. Apparently not. They're going after the remnants of his Palembang forces. And so are the Sallies. Nels hitting the runway. I've got a number of bombers hitting the runways. Manila, there's actually Oscar long range cap above these bombers. Not they are escorted. Looks like a few P-35s are there. Here come the rest of the formation. It's finishing off what was left at Manila. Bombers coming in, hitting his ground units. ineffectually bombing the airfield at Xi'an. Some late sweepers. It's like his ships are still in Sopak. Air missions seem to go smoothly. Let's see how the ground attacks go. Oh, had a couple infantry battalions there. Interesting. Hmm. Not so much anymore. Okay. Oh, it's three good cores in this hex. Interesting. We suffered quite a few disablements. That's okay. We can recover those disablements. The key in China is just to keep grinding away, burning a supply. See how quickly his AV has been creeping up since he split those units. Dot base cleanup. Clark Field. No significant change, it looks like. Now, what does he have in Manila? Yep. Kuala Lumpur. The Argyles are there. That's about it. 316 Punjab. Savoy falls finally. Space Force that was at Victoria Point. It's going to have to be destroyed in place. Hey, well, that was not a particularly fabulous turn, at least in terms of the ground operations. So let's take a look. See if ops losses were fine this turn. Lost some PBYs and Dorners. Well, let's China at Pingxiang. 17th is Mixed Brigade. 27th is decent. 22nd B was pretty heavily hit. So we've got a couple options here. We could continue to reinforce down here, but this has been really slow. This is ×3 terrain. We have another corps and some armor and artillery available that we could push straight on Changsha, which, while still grinding away here, is seems to be a reasonable approach to this. Meanwhile, the main event is here. Let's see if we're ready to attack. Yep, looks pretty good. Everybody's in supplies, so we'll order an infantry to attack along the main axis of advance. Java will attack again here with armor, and we have reinforcements coming, and we'll attack at Tijalap. Probably just a single regiment with the other in reserve, because that's just a base force. Interesting, the armor did not get out of the hex tanks. It only moved about 41 miles. Like to need to shut down his ability to cover this area with naval search aircraft. So right now they're probably flying out of Batavia. I need to check to see if they're flying out of Medan or any of these other bases. I've got paratroopers now available, and I have Special Naval Landing Force units, multiples that I can use to blind him. My simplest option for getting eyes on the Indian Ocean is paratroopers from Chiang Mai, drop on Little Andaman. I've got AV on the way, can be there in about 4 days, so there's no rush to do that. But within 4 days or so, I can have long range search aircraft over the Indian Ocean or commit the Special Naval Landing Force units here by amphibious invasion to take Port Blair and grab its level 1 airfield. Both of those are options. But I want to try to blind him to any movements here. I also like if his recon that's picking me up here, not very well though, is coming out of Darwin, or whether he has patrol aircraft stashed somewhere else here, or potentially operating out about PEP. Because again, I want to continue to remove his options to collect information, because we're about to wrap up the invasion of Port Moresby and Horn Island next turn. Um, and then at that point, we'll make the decision whether the KB stays in the Coral Sea and our phase 2 operations are in Northern Australia, or whether we move on India. And right now, leaning pretty strongly towards the India option. Going to take a week or so more. Can do the. Today is the 15th. Probably going to be almost 10 days, so it'd be the 25th before we could move under KB cover to India. That's still early enough. Means we'd arrive in India, depending on how we stage the transports, early, very early February, uh, which again is early enough, but pretty soon thereafter, a the Australian Expeditionary Force starts arriving, and can be used to reinforce, and the in good terrain, difficult uh, to move. So we want to move quickly in India, and assuming he responds by sending the Australians there, um, block their chance to uh, establish a position that we just can't realistically break in time. Because the goal of taking India, obviously getting the heavy industry, some extent the light industry, capturing that supply producing potential, but the real goal is defeating as many of these British units while they're very weak uh, as possible, and banging your head against the veteran Australians uh, coming from North Africa is not a good idea. Okay, well, that's good. Let's see. Well, now that we have roughly 2 division equivalent, we'll go ahead and make a first attack at Manila and see if we can shift the Filipinos out of Manila, push them into Clark. We'll continue dot base cleanup all through the Banda Sea in particular, uh, focusing on where he might be stashing patrol aircraft. The good news is a lot of those valuable AVPs, I consider them valuable, on Java instead of stashing them out in some of these dot bases, as far as I can tell, with patrol aircraft to keep eyes on me. It's not a possible problem to solve. It's just harder. Um, but we'll need to look for where his patrol aircraft are operating on, because I don't him tracking turn by turn the movement of the KB if it's heading back to support operations against in India. Northern Australian option um, is still decent, but there's only a couple thousand victory points in both the Australian troops and his resources uh, in Northern Australia. And then you get down one hex below Brisbane and you trigger more Australian reinforcements. The Aussies are tough. Triggering Australian reinforcements, unless you're going to really just take all of Australia. Difficult task in a scenario one game with, unless China collapses really early. Um, yeah, not sure the juice is worth the squeeze. So that's why I'm leaning towards India. Alaska isn't a particularly great option, but we'll continue to make some noise up there right now. It's been a low threat environment, so we'll continue to push. Anyway, interesting time right now. Still don't know where these carriers are. Uh, 3 turns from Perth. So approximately um, they're somewhere between 1824-ish hexes, maybe a bit more from Perth, depending on how fast they're moving. Worst case scenario, they're sitting here off Java right now, looking. I don't know if it's the worst case scenario, but looking to make a run against Surabaha or Palembang and damage the oil. Our patrol aircraft haven't picked up a sniff of them. He would probably stay 12 hexes away. So his most likely area to stay undetected from our long range patrol aircraft on southern Java and Cocos Island is here. So we'll send a couple submarines out to sniff that out. But he may be just taking a wide towards Diego Garcia and around the Becas Island to position his carriers for a move against India. Uh, that correctly anticipate the likely direction I'm going to go. The seeing our carriers here and the action here and soon the action here might force him to reverse course. Potentially we can catch him out of position. So it's all good. We'll look forward to the next few turns, particularly see if our armor makes headway along the Ankang Road, along our main axis of advance in China. Look at that alternative axis of advance. It probably would have been a advance, uh, all things considered now on Changsha. Um, look to see how the initial fight in Manila goes, and to finish up taking Batavia and forcing him back just into Bandawan, where Recon says he has quite a few aircraft, not of numbers or quality to particularly concern me. I have this transport It's an amphibious task force with movements and supply for Cocos Island. This is potentially a bone to be chewed if his carriers are operating off here, or if others have done, he jumps dive bombers into bandoing. Um, it's, I think I could task force. It's none of these are particularly valuable ships. The AV, of course, is valuable in terms of victory points. These are World War One era destroyers, so a devastating loss if they do get jumped. This mortar battalion, I'd like on a Cocos Island. Reason why I'm pushing through, the mortars do pretty darn good work if they're not disrupted heavily, if enemy landings occur. So wherever possible, I like to drop those mortar battalions onto the atolls. Can't think of anything else for today, so thank you for joining me again and look forward to our next chance to talk.